Well, today we are going to talk about bubbles. No, not the chimp, and no, not the laundry detergent, but financial bubbles. Hi, I'm John McNeil. This is the Invest Strong Network. Welcome. So, a financial bubble develops when lots of free money basically pour into an asset class, and that asset class runs up in value to extraordinary levels. So these bubbles can develop all over the place, right? Real estate, stocks, fixed income, precious metals, Bitcoin, right? Among many others. How do you avoid them? And really, what contributes to the formation of a bubble? Well, we'll do the second part of that question first. Bubbles are normally caused by two things. They're caused by irrational exuberance, or mania, as it's more commonly known, where persons are just so captivated by this particular asset that they basically cast aside any kind of logic or scientific or mathematical calculations, and they just cast that to the side because they have to have it regardless the cost, and they go out and spend enormous amounts of money for it. And when you get many people that feel that way, a bubble forms in that asset class. A second way it happens, and here in the United States of America, certainly in the last, shall we say, 30 years, what has happened is that asset bubbles have been basically created by government policy. So the government, either through tax policy or through the Federal Reserve or through some other kind of legislation, they really wish to entice the people to invest their money in a particular asset class. So that asset class could be, again, real estate, which we saw vividly what happened in the early 2000s. The government had laid out incentives for people to become homeowners. They had financial institutions that were more than happy to help them channel the funds from home buyers into the market. Many people poured in, millions of people poured in their money because they wanted to either own a home for their family, which is good, or perhaps even buy investment property, which is not so sanguine. And they poured all their money into it, wildly ran up the price of real estate, only to see that come crashing down at a later time. Now, what may surprise you, and here I'll put on my historian's cap a bit, is that the government is actually rather infamous for doing this in other ways. Housing, real estate, that's only been the latest. They did it in previous times for oil, because back in the middle 20th century, the United States of America was heavily dependent upon oil resources from the Middle East. And so there was, through tax policy and through foreign policy from the State Department and the Defense Department, they began encouraging American producers, North American producers, to drill, to expand, to do all of this. Investors poured into the space, and it accomplished what the government wanted, right? I mean, lots of people, lots of companies were created, goo gobs of money was made, lots of oil was pulled out of the ground, and by the early 21st century, basically the United States of America was oil independent, or at least North American oil independent, which is what they had been hankering for about 50 years. The problem is now the government created this bubble in the natural resources area, oil and gas, and now that bubble has come crashing down. And so many of the persons that had invested, shall we say, late in the bubble cycle, they're getting killed right now. Okay, so what can you do to avoid your money, your resources being poured into a speculative bubble? Well, that brings us to the first question I asked: how to avoid it? The best way to avoid it, friends, is actually using a simple calculation. Does this asset, or shall we say, will this asset create income for an investor, right? And really, income can be created in two ways. Real estate wise, income is created through rent, created through rents. So you acquire real estate, fix it up, get some tenants in there, bam, lots of income. And that will really help put the quality of tenant you get and how much they're willing to pay for rent. That'll give you a good baseline on what the price of this thing should be, right? So that makes being able to spot a bubble in a particular asset class much easier. The second way that income is generated is, of course, through dividends. So if there is a stock company or even fixed income bonds, right? If they're paying dividends, then that will help put a price, an appropriate price on that asset. The biggest, most dangerous speculative bubbles happen in assets that do not generate income. Bitcoin. So, and not just that, but also growth stocks, and we'll put growth in air quotes, and other asset classes, precious metals, that do not create income. They can be purchased, they can be held, they can be sold, but they do not create income. That really creates wild speculative bubbles, and those bubbles can wipe you out if you are not careful. So it does not have to be art, fine art. It does not have to be jewelry, although you do see bubbles there too. But it could be real estate that is not purchased for the purpose of income, right? And these things are there. They are dangerous. They can wipe you out. Now, right here and right now, at this time in the spring of 2020, there is, in my opinion, an enormous bubble building in the equity markets, the stock market. Why do I say that? You have the government, through the Federal Reserve, that is wildly inflating the pricing through this quantitative easing and things like that. And whether the price of the stocks right now can be sustained or not when everything gets back to normal, we don't know. Certainly I don't know. But what I do know is that the government is manipulating the price of this thing, and they're doing it in fixed income. They're doing it in real estate, as I mentioned in a previous video, and they're doing it even in equities. So one has to be extraordinarily careful in any assets that you acquire at this time to avoid a bubble situation. All right. So those are just some thoughts, nuggets of wisdom. If you appreciate it, please smash the like button. Need you to do it. Smash the like button and leave a comment. Love those comments. Thank you much. Also, please subscribe. Please subscribe. All right. Thank you so much, and good luck.